stream is going live. We are.
Today, on a very special episode of Guilty Movie Pleasures, Cameron Lewis can't be with us. No, he's still alive. Don't worry. Don't start sending sad tweets his way. We have two special guests on the show today. Paul Soter, a.k.a. Officer Foster himself, and Andy Palmer, self-proclaimed Officer Palmer himself. And we are talking the comedy classic Super Troopers.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Guilty Movie Pleasures.
Oh, yes, Guilty Movie Pleasure fans, do we have a fun show in store for you? Because it's not often that you get to listen to anybody other than Cameron and I just gas on about movies, let alone one of the stars from the movie we're talking about. And that is Mr. Paul Soter. Thank you for coming on the show today. Thank you so much for being here. We're
pleasure.
Excited to have you.
Have you never had somebody from one of the movies you've been talking about?
It's been one other time before. We did Revenge of the Nerds, and Booger came on the show. That was very fun. Booger himself came on the show.
Curtis Armstrong.
Or Curtis Armstrong.
His mom called.
Curtis Armstrong. Yes. And also,
Curtis
director
Booger Armstrong.
Andy Palmer's here. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. I'm Ben Begley. I forgot to say it. You know that. Anyways, so we're here talking Super Troopers. But before all that, we want to give a little bit of a backstory on you guys. You guys work together on a film that's a little different than Super Troopers, one might say. Polar opposite from that. It's a darker, grittier film. Badlands of Kane. Do you want to say a little bit about that? Tell the audience what they can expect.
Sure. Fun little thriller. A little love letter to the Twilight Zone and Hitchcock. Paul plays our resident baddie, Terry, and it was amazing working with him. And yeah, that's it. It's out on VOD now. You can check it out. All the major platforms, iTunes and Google and all that good stuff. So give it a watch if you like a good thriller.
And Paul, what was it like playing something completely different from, a little bit darker than Super Troopers or Broken Lizard, things like that?
It's a blast because I don't think of this as being acting.
Yeah.
It's even in the different movies, essentially what Broken Lizard is doing is some version of just how we are idiots among ourselves when we hang out.
Yeah.
So I don't ever feel like I am performing. And yet, when I was young and like in college and stuff, I was into acting and being in the theater. So when Andy and his producer Warner offered me the opportunity to do an acting part, I was like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I'd like to see if I can still do it.
Which was very different from the conversation that Warner and I had on the way to meet Paul, because Warner was like, hey, so the background on how we met Paul was, Paul's also a director. He did a movie called Dark Circles for After Dark. And Warner's connected with After Dark. And so he's like, hey, I think we can get to Paul Soter for this movie. And I was like, great, I would love Paul Soter to tell me no. So that would be amazing. And so we're driving to the meeting the whole time. And I was like, I wonder how he's going to tell us no. Like, is he going to be nice, or is he going to throw the script in our face?
I feel like I let you down. I feel like I never got to. Should we do it now? Just to get the experience?
No.
It's a great little script, Andy. It's not
It's even better when it's a great little script.
Yeah, great little project. I think you're going to do real well.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Have fun with that.
Pass.
But it was the total opposite. We sat down. He's like, hey, listen, you guys got something here. I'm interested.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because I'm also, Andy mentioned I had written and directed a horror movie, and I was a horror movie dork before I was ever even a comedy dork. I've been many dorks over my life, but
Same here.
Very early on, developed a fascination with genre movies, and so that was the other really cool part of the opportunity, was not just to play something dark, play something heavy, but also be in any kind of a horror movie.
Yeah.
And you saw me, I freaked out on social media when the poster for Badlands of Kane.
Badass.
It's a really great kind of cool retro, and I just, there's no way I was going to say no.
And does the horror geekery, does that kind of feed into a movie like Club Dread? Is Broken Lizard as a whole, or a lot of you guys horror geeks and stuff like that?
To various degrees, but I'm absolutely at the top of that horror dork food chain in Broken Lizard. So, and each script kind of, out of necessity, you've got one person who's really got to do the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
So once we'd agreed on this conceit, since that's my role in the group, then that really was my movie that I took a lot of ownership of. So, like when you talk about it being a movie that you really like, I always like hearing that.
Oh, yeah.
Because essentially it's probably the least seen of our movies, and yet it's the one that's kind of my baby. So I'm always a little sensitive about that, but also makes me a sucker for when somebody.
No, I love Club
compliments
Dread.
it.
I love Club Dread, and in fact, it to me, it's one of the few horror comedies that works because we've talked about before when this. I got so excited. I realized I got so excited about my guests on the show. I forgot to do a proper intro for either of them, and it's new. It's not. I'm not used to this. I'm just used to Cameron being here. But you know, Paul Soter. He's been in Super Troopers, Badlands of Cain, Beer Fest, Club Dread, Super Troopers 2 coming out, and Andy. In case you didn't know this, Andy directed the Funhouse Massacre, which my wife and I co-wrote together, and it's another horror comedy,
Right.
and also Badlands of Cain as well, and Find Me is another little
I did.
ghost flick.
Yes, also available, please.
Yes.
That one's for free.
Yes,
You
you
can
could just get
There's
that
no
one.
excuse.
watch that right now. Yeah.
So, you know, awkward intro about 3 minutes into the show, but that's fine. But what I was getting at, though, is that Andy and I, when we were talking about Funhouse Massacre, is that that also is a horror comedy. And what we talked about is that horror comedies either lean too far on the horror or too far, or not enough in one direction. You have to, you can't just ride the middle. And I think the Club Dread does a really good job of making it super funny, but gory as shit, too. And so you get those slasher moments, but you still get really funny. And it doesn't go to in my mind, it's not like a spoof necessarily. Like it stays in the realm of a comedy
Right.
still and doesn't become a scary movie.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are moments where we wanted to have fun with conventions, which
Yeah.
you want to do. But yes, it was always, at least from my point of view, more of a love letter to the movies, those fantastic slasher movies from the the early '80s that we grew up on.
It reminded me as if I Still Know What You Did Last Summer was a comedy, because that also takes place on an island.
On the island, yeah, for sure.
If it was a comedy. Anyway, so we're here talking about Super Troopers. I got sidetracked because I love horror films so much. Super Troopers. So what was... I wanted to have Andy and I describe how when we first saw it, and then Paul kind of the fruition of how the idea came about. Because I remember seeing it in college with my buddies when it came out, and it was like this sleeper hit that everybody was talking about, and the trailers. This was, I think, before really YouTube became like huge. I just remember seeing trailers here and there online, and then we all went to the theaters at the Athena at my college in Ohio, and were just dying laughing, and it became a movie that the second it came out on DVD I watched, and I don't know how many times we've quoted Meow or Shenanigans or it's just nonstop. Who Wants a Mustache Ride? Anytime I have a mustache, which is rare because it grows
That's
very
such a great
awkward.
sentence. Anytime I have a mustache.
Anytime in my life I've had a mustache, I've tried to say Who Wants a Mustache Ride so many times. So it's one of these things that became really influential to me in the world of comedy and in the world of a lot of it seems like it came out of nowhere, so often you get these movies that have like all these big names in it that try and be really funny, and this was just, you could tell you guys were best friends and you were this awesome comedy troupe that had been working together for years, and then it just clicks on so many levels, and it's clear because the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is 90% that audiences agree.
Yeah. But I think that was a big part of the trajectory of it. I think what people respond to is like what you mentioned. So many people have these stories of, I saw it with my buddies, and they immediately recognize their own idiotic sort of relationships with their buddies in what the characters were doing, and also clearly the people behind the movie. You felt that, and I think that's, if we're going to talk about like a movie getting bad reviews or whatever, I think that's a very ethereal thing that unless you kind of can identify with that, I think you're going to miss the charm of it.
Yeah.
So. Because we all know with comedy, that's completely subjective. Somebody's going to like it, somebody's going to hate it. But I think that the reason that you had that at the time was critics, I don't think, are the same kind of. You don't think of them as being people who they finish writing their article and they go like
have fun anywhere.
On the couch with their buddies. It's just not that food group.
Yeah. And we were talking before the show how two of my favorite comedies in general in my top 10, I'm not bullshitting, is Wet Hot American Summer and Super Troopers are in my top 10. And both of those critics did not get, but audiences love. And it is that disconnect. I feel like, a lot of times I feel like most of the movies we talk about on here, audiences love and the critics just don't get for some reason. There's a disconnect.
And with that, I think Wet Hot American Summer also has that kind of homemade among friends feel. And I think if you're a critic and you don't find something funny, then the next thing you're going to kind of look to is like the craftsmanship of a movie, and not to take anything away from either of those movies, but they're just had a sense of being kind of thrown together quickly among friends. So, I can see why a critic would sort of miss on that, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andy, when did you first see this?
Same thing, college, and it was, for me, it was like, it hit me on two levels, because it was the same thing. We started to hear about this movie, and you guys, it was a Sundance. You guys hit it Sundance,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. And so everybody was kind of talking about it, and so I was, super into filmmaking at the time, and then that idea that these guys were just friends in college that got together and made a movie, and I was like, that's what we're doing, but we're way less talented. So,
how I felt too.
but it was,
Man, we're doing the same thing, just our movies are way less funny.
yeah, exactly. And so like it hit me on two levels, and same pile in the car, go watch the movie, and you're just like, I mean, the first to the opening title card, it's relentless humor.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's
It's one of the best
humor,
openings to
because
any
it just
comedy I've seen.
hurts your face. It's so damn funny.
Well, and also because I remember at that time was when I just started drinking a little bit and partying. I was a very sheltered and kind of prude kid when it came to anything. I was like, I am not gonna have a beer till I'm 21. It's bad. And then I just started partying, so there was always that fear when we were walking while drunk in college, but that fear of being stopped by cops. And so I was just reaching that point where I understood how cops fuck with people. And oh, by the way, you can swear on the show. And I just understood at that point. And that scene, that opening scene, is relentlessly funny, like you said. And I don't know how many times I still have never tried a snozberry in my life, but I'm sure they're going to taste like snozberries when I do.
Look in the glass.
I think you'll find them quite enjoyable.
I'm very excited. I'm going to get some snozberries after the show today. I just don't know where you get them.
The Snosberry District. It's
down there.
Yeah, hashtag Snozberries District. So, Paul, how did this come to be? Like, when did this idea come about? How long did it take? Just give us any kind of rundown on the process of getting this made.
Well, before we ever did any kind of movie making, we'd gone to college together where we started doing sketch comedy.
And where'd you go to college at?
Improv. It was Colgate University, upstate New York.
Awesome.
So at that time, this was a while ago, and so, what comedy groups tried to do then would be you'd go to the city and you'd do improv shows, and maybe you'd get on TV. You'd be like a Upright Citizens Brigade of the state. And that's the kind of track we were trying to do. And not having a ton of luck. I mean, we did a stage show that, our friends would come to see and drink enough beer that they would invite us back. And
I've been there.
For years and years in New York, that was just our routine. And then we kind of got inspired by the sort of 90s indie film explosion about wait a minute, we liked making short movies as a part of our stage show. But then we thought, we're getting to a point where people can make weird little movies and actually, people will see them.
Yeah.
So we'd made a movie called Puddle Cruiser that we did back at Colgate University, and I really had a blast trying to do sort of more long-form storytelling. And that had gone to Sundance and had done pretty well, and definitely encouraged us to make more movies. And then Super Troopers was something that we, over the course of the next few years after we'd done Puddle Cruiser, that just... we knew that was the next thing we wanted to do. We were spending a lot of time on the road, and so there were a lot of times of the five of us packed into Jay's Saab, driving around promoting Puddle Cruiser or doing shows where you'd think about the dumbest, weirdest, funniest things that could happen on a highway, and then thinking about, the guys who work on these highways all day are highway patrolmen, and all the goofy shit that they would have to do, especially if it was at a boring location, and so that just became the basis for the conceit. And it took a long time to find somebody willing to sign off on that, give us the money to make that. But what was nice is that was then 3 years of writing and rewriting the script. And so finally we found a guy.
Speaking of the writing, because there's 5 of you that write, correct? The 5 of you that, and how does this, just for people out there who are screenwriters or things like that or have writing partners, what's the process with that? I know you said that Club Dread, you took point on it. Is it something where you take different scenes and then you rewrite them, or is it like a group write? How do you guys do that?
Tried it different way over years, and I know different writing teams that also break it up different ways. For us, it was just about keep everybody in the room together as much as possible to get that spirit of how we just riff with each other and try to crack each other up. But inevitably somebody's going to have to put pen to paper. We've tried splitting up scenes, but then you end up with a script that's written in 5 kind of styles and 5 voices, so it doesn't really help. So we kind of settled on, okay, it's shitty, but every time we get together and we're going to just riff and we're all going to get high, somebody's going to have to keep their shit together enough to get it all down.
You guys are drawing joints.
Yeah.
We got the short one here.
And so every script has got somebody who's got that thankless task of like, okay, shit, all right, wait a minute, he said this, and then he said this, and then we went off and started talking about that, and wait, I'm not sure that's even related, but I should probably write it down anyway. And then you have to go and, you do that to create an outline, you bring it back to the group, and the group looks at it together and riffs on it some more. Then it becomes the same thing with actually writing scenes, and you go away and you try to capture what everybody said in the room, and you bring it back, and the group all does it together. So.
And how did you decide which characters? Was it something where you specifically were writing characters for yourselves, or was there a fight over like who got to play anything, or are the characters? I guess how similar to real life are some of these as well?
I mean, it always ends up being kind of a version of yourself, but we've tried it different ways. In the case of Super Troopers specifically, I remember Jay, to his credit, saying, all right, let's not even have any conversations about casting until we've done a ton of drafts, so that what you would avoid the idea of people favoring themselves
right.
or whatever.
Big fight,
and then we'll cast it, and then we'll do another 5, which will give everybody the chance to be selfish. But so that's a case where I remember specifically doing table reads in our little rented office at the time, where we took passes at it with people reading different parts, and I was Rabbit for a while, and Erik was Farva for a while, and just read it until, as soon as Heffernan read Farva, it was like, okay, well, that's settled. Because that really is, like, Farva is Heffernan at his sort of unfiltered,
I feel like all of us have a Farva in our
Yeah,
lives.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's what's funny, too, is, you get pulled over by cops, or you run into cops, and you realize that every cop that I've ever met since then either has a Farva at their office that they talk about at their station, or that one officer who doesn't recognize you and doesn't think that you're being funny is the Farva.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, that's the Farva of that station.
Because that's Farva, right? We have had that Farva in our lives, because Farva is the guy that tries so hard.
God.
Like, he wants to be part of the group so bad, and you're just like, damn it, if you were just not such an a-hole, we would want you to be in this group. But you're not.
I have varying degrees of Farva. I don't have anybody as extreme as Farva in my life, but I have some people in my life that will, like, a joke, it'll be like everybody will be kind of joking in a circle, and the joke will be going around, and it'll come to them, and it's just like they try, and it's just, but they don't realize that they failed at the joke, and they laugh harder than everyone else, then everyone's just sitting there kind of like, oh man, I need another drink.
Yeah.
I gotta go. Anybody need anything? And then it just dissipates.
Yeah.
Well, it's been the one of the interesting things about writing the sequel, because the process of getting the sequel financed has actually taken longer, frankly, than it took to get the first one financed.
Which is insane. Completely insane.
But now I think we're on draft 31. As we continue, we shot some at the end of last year, and we're going back, so we're rewriting again. But it's been funny because we've realized we're all such fans, though, of Farva now, that the sequel was so Farva heavy for a while that we're like, well, wait a minute. And we kept we realized at some point that we kept pushing him and pushing and pushing. Let's see how much Farva can push the envelope. And then at some point, this was in the last few months, we kind of looked back at it and we were like, have we also made it now that Farva is crazy? Like, are we going to have to now explain that he had like a tumor in the intervening time? Because he's like Farva dialed up to 11 in almost every scene now, which is great. Like, we find it so funny, but it is my fear that people are going to look at the sequel and be like, Farva really went off the rails.
Yeah.
But they might enjoy that.
It inevitably happens. It's always like, it's my argument. Sitcoms do that, where it's like, they've gone that one season too long. When everybody comes this hyper version of themselves, like Friends season 10, it's like Ross is just crazy, and like Monica just cleans so goddamn much.
Because eventually you run out of, you can't just repeat the same thing. I think an example of this that sticks out of my mind is like the Hangover trilogy, where Zach Galifianakis' character, just by the third one, is just batshit insane, and you're just like, what choices are being made here? It's just, but you have to escalate. But I do think, like you're saying, it is a delicate balance between the two. But I have no doubt that plenty of Farva will go a long way and be
Well,
fun.
because you guys didn't
and
have
be very
that
fun.
in the first one. You didn't have that. You guys are just writing a movie to write a movie. There's not. Now you have a responsibility to the fans, and that's got to be a pressure for you guys. You know.
And it's been a very different experience than even writing anything that we wrote after Super Troopers. Where, I mean, I think if it's at all possible, we actually have written thinking just about what made each other laugh, and that's been part of, I think, what works for us. But yeah, this has been different in terms of definitely getting into arguments about, like, well, look, not necessarily even about having an obligation to the audience, but just as we think about something like an action-y scene or something like that, having to be like, well, okay, yeah, that would be fun to do this car chase, but is our audience really just there for kind of more of what people seem to have loved about the first one, and that the interaction, the comedy, the characters, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been an interesting thing to have in your head as you write.
I was
31 drafts worth.
31 drafts worth.
How many drafts did I make you do a Funhouse? Like 2. That may explain a lot. Sundance.
Officer Balmer over here making you 2 drafts of your script.
Renee and I did about 8 before you came along, and then we did. But we did that massive 9-hour session where we went over every line.
This I have to ask you because it fascinates me, because I do work with some husband and wife writing teams and have always felt like it might be impolite for me to be like, God, how the fuck do you work with your wife, with your spouse? But as long as we're here, I mean, how do you do that?
It's one of those things where we've actually, ever since we started dating, we've been together almost 10 years now, and ever since we started dating, we've done comedy sketches and written stuff together, web series, shorts, things like that, and so just kind of, I think if we had just been like, hey, let's just try and write something, let's try and write a feature together, we might have just killed each other, not literally, but since we had been for years collaborating on things smaller, and it just kind of built very case by case to a bigger project. But don't get me wrong, there are times where she's the more level-headed one, and I'm the one who's like, that doesn't make any sense. I don't like that. And she'll have to be like, Ben, just listen to me for a second. And I'm like, okay, you're right.
Yeah, she's very calming. Like Ben. I don't, if anybody's ever spent time with him, is Ben. There's a moment when Ben gets in his own head, and you're just like, oh, Ben is checked out.
And I'm like thinking,
it's just all over. And Renee is just like this kind of more calming presence. But then when Renee kind of like she goes to that next level, then Ben becomes this calming. They're just
we balance each other out.
They totally do.
We balance each other out.
What I find so funny is I've observed it. I do a lot of work at an ad agency. In between projects, and there is a married couple copywriter team that sit near me, and there are just too many times where I overhear them and they're fighting about a project or a script, and I come to realize it's like they're not really fighting about the script. They're fighting about something that happened this morning. They're talking about the script, but this is not clearly like he did something, he fucked up, and she's mad at him about it. Like,
there have been several times where it's been like, the thing that my wife will get annoyed with is when I write, I go into like this cave where I listen to the Social Network soundtrack on repeat, and I drink a pot of coffee, and I just go and go and go for like 4 to 6 hours straight. And then she'll come home and I'll be like, I wrote 30 pages. And she'll be like, that's great, but did you walk the dog? Did you?
Right.
What are we going to do about dinner or anything? And I'm like,
the bathtub isn't overflowing.
And so when we were writing Funhouse and a few other projects, it's like, she'll be like, slightly behind in pages, but she'll be like, that's not fair. And I'll be like, babe, you got to catch up. And she's like, it's not fair because you go into this like trance and don't accomplish anything else with the household. And then you expect me to catch up with your pages. So that's the only time we really butt heads, is when I go into my weird vision quest.
I want to meet this couple. Like, God damn, that cat litter.
That cat litter. So I forgot to say in the beginning of the show, we might try and sneak in a few meows here and there for the rest of the show if we so feel like it.
Is that one? Does that count as
that counts as one?
One.
Yeah, I think right meow from here on we're gonna do that. And did you hear that, Zach? Oh, Zach's gonna have the impossible job of trying to count all the meows we say. And sound clips and 3-minute counter and everything, but also you at home can count them. Right. Although those first 3 were gimmies, so I don't know if that
we could all try doing as many as possible, as fast as possible, and see if Zach's head explodes.
Yeah, just like scanners happens.
So I have a funny story that's like very organic to the meow world, and tally that one.
We already said
Zach.
14 somehow.
Yeah. And so, so we were on the set of Kane, right? And it was Paul's. Was it your first day? I can't remember. It was one of your very first days on set. We were at this film ranch in Santa Clarita, and our first assistant director, Eli Barker, is kind of walking our background through the stage and stuff, or through the blocking and stuff like that. And so Paul's there, everybody's there. We have all these kind of people in this like church scene, and Eli's like, and so what you're gonna do is you're gonna come down this aisle and you're gonna park right now. And everybody fucking freezes because he had literally because he just had become part of his vernacular. Just didn't even think about it.
And you're all thinking, oh shit, what if that's the one
and
thing?
Everybody freezes, and Paul goes, "My contribution to Western society."
But there's a look that you see on a person's face when they want to meow you and they don't know if they can. They don't because it's true. Nobody knows me. I was in an airport. I was stuck in an airport on Monday, and you'll see there's a look, and you'll see a guy looking at you, and he wants to meow you, but what if I'm just that asshole who snaps and is like, I'm sick of it.
Yeah.
Who knows? So it's a fun thing to see in people's eyes when did the aftermath of that, was it kind of like a Family Guy joke for you where it was funny at first and then it got a little old and now it's funny again because it's happened so often to you, people coming up and say, have you ever been pulled over and a cop said meow to you or anything like that? Yeah. I mean, I don't get sick of it because I'm also I'm not a celebrity, and so it's not like have a cow, dude. It's not like I walk out the door and I'm inundated with it. It's it's still enough that it's always like it's nice to know that people are thinking about me.
Yeah.
And I think the only tricky part is that I still struggle with what's the right response because there's nothing, I don't know what I'm supposed to say other than, yeah. It doesn't necessarily lend itself to an immediate sort of comeback. It doesn't necessarily open up an automatic conversation. So it's more like my cross to bear is just like how to sort of show my appreciation and at the same time just, what do I...
And you have a funny level of celebrity because your face is so recognizable, but because so many things are, I think, attributed to Broken Lizard, where it's like not everybody knows your name. I remember we went to the movies one time and we walk out and this girl comes up and she goes, "You're him. You're that guy. You're him." And you were so cool. You're like, "Yep, I'm him." She's like, but from that movie." And I was like, how weird must that be to be like, you don't know me, you've come up to me, and now... I don't know how to respond. Yes, I am that man.
I had a celebrity sighting once. Some kid came up to me, and not that I'm a celebrity by any means, and this will make sense when I finish the story, but he came up to me and he goes, "You're him. You're you. Can I get a photo?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And he takes a selfie with me, and I'm like, "Who am I?" And he goes, "You're Ryan Reynolds." And then he walks off, and I'm like, first off, not Ryan Reynolds. Secondly, definitely not Ryan Reynolds. And I was just like, yep, that's my life. That someone mistakes me for someone way more attractive and famous and rich than me. Ryan Reynolds.
You were the inventor of Reynolds Wrap.
I'm sorry that you were mistaken for Ryan Reynolds.
No. Here's the thing, though. I couldn't tell. I was standing with a buddy of mine, and afterwards, we couldn't tell if that kid was just fucking with me or if, like if he was going around saying that to something to everybody.
Because he'd clearly seen you in something.
I don't think so.
And stuff like that, It's like when people come up to me and they're like, "You're him. You're Chris Farley," and I'm like, he's fucking dead. That's terrible.
Meow, Andy, you're being hard on yourself right now, okay? Please. Jeez. So there's so many. There's some things I found on IMDb that they were saying that that I wanted to actually see if this is true. That the syrup on set that Rabbit and Thorny drink was real syrup in the close-ups. Is that true?
The intention was, surely nobody would actually have to drink maple syrup, but really no other fluid behaves like maple syrup, really. So once they realized that, then to their credit, they were like, well, we're going to take a shit and dive right in.
How many takes did they do of real?
I mean, not a ton, but it doesn't take many takes to fuck you up on that stuff. So my recollection is they Probably each of them did 2.5 or 3 bottles.
That's
But
like instant diabetes. That's
Yeah,
just
it wrecked them. It
For
wrecked
sure.
them.
It had
and
to have.
They had sworn off of it smartly for a long time, but it's also it kind of becomes that thing for them, like with Meow for me, that they get sort of challenged to do that a lot.
People are just sending the maple syrup. And
Where you guys
It's
going?
amazing how often, somebody's like, "Oh, want to come chug this maple syrup with me?" And so they're like, "No, there's no way we want to do it again." But I can't remember what we were doing, but we were promoting something, and we were on Attack of the Show at the time, back when Olivia Munn, who's a buddy of ours, was hosting, and she had this notion of doing some kind of syrup chugging thing, and these guys who were very firm in their resolve to never do this. When asked by Olivia Munn, you can imagine that resolve melted pretty quickly.
Okay, I guess so. Yeah, Olivia Munn. Sure.
So they agreed to do it. But what they said was, we want to avoid that diabetic sugar coma thing, so we would have to just do it with sugarless maple syrup, which they did. And it was Olivia and Jay and Eric and somebody else, and all 4 of them got violent diarrhea afterwards.
Because whatever's in the fake shit is worse than the real stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they're still like, it was awesome to be getting texts from Olivia Munn throughout the course of the day, like, "Oh God, I just almost shit myself again."
Is it weird that that makes Olivia Munn more attractive to me, that she's okay saying that stuff?
I think so.
Yeah.
Not
I
the
think
image
so.
of her shitting, but the idea that she's cool enough
So free about it.
So free about it.
No, that is what, if hanging out with her during those years, I haven't seen her lately, but that's what's very charming about her is she was very much like one of the guys, behaved like one of the guys.
And she was kind of doing that before the big push to have female comedians be more like the guys, like the Paul Feig trend that's happening now, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I think it's very much who she is. She just happens to be. She's a very goofy person.
Yeah. I know it's a little late in the game, but why don't we do the 3-minute recap of the movie, since we haven't gotten into that yet? Do we think we can do that, Zach? How do we feel about it,
So
guys?
that's the clock?
That's the
That
clock.
is the bomb.
That's the bomb that you were wondering about earlier. Yeah, so we're going to try and do... Oh, man, there's so many funny things. I got to try and remember everything that happened. I'm just going to keep passing it back and forth between all 3 of us.
Okay.
But we're trying to go sort of chronologically to convey
as
the
much
movie.
as we
Okay,
can.
that's interesting.
And my brain may explode, but let's see what happens. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we start off, there's these 3 stoners, they're all getting high, and they're talking about the beachfront property and all this stuff, and if they own the beach or the water, I'm getting way too detailed already, and then Thorny and Rabbit pull up behind him, or pull up next to him, and they're like, "Oh God, you gotta eat all the weed," and so the kid in the back, he's eating all the weed, then he eats all the mushrooms, and he's getting super high, and the cops start fucking with him. There's all these hilarious moments that happen. There's the snozberries taste like snozberries, there's, we can't pull over any further, we're already pulled over, sir, and then Mac comes driving by, speeding.
You're not gonna make it
Oh,
out of the
Jesus
opening
Christ.
scene.
The title card.
So Matt comes driving by, and they find out that then they realize he's just one of the cops, and then title card, boom, now somebody else take it, because I just did terribly.
And then we head into the diner, and they have this maple syrup chugging contest, in which case, they're fucking with the rookie as usual. And then we move into roll call, when Farva tries
You're
to
much
fuck
better
with the when Farva moves in and tries to fuck with the rookie by putting a bar of soap into his coffee. Oh, good one, Farva.
Got you good, fucker.
Yeah, got you good one.
Yeah. Okay.
And then,
No, Paul.
We get called out to because there's a trailer and there's a dispute about whether whose jurisdiction that was, us and the local cops, and then we know there's going to be a fight, and we find a dead body, and there's a pig in there.
Yep.
And that then once we get out, we fight with the local cops, and then we go ahead and give them jurisdiction, and then O'Hagan yells at us, but we...
Minute 35. And then you and Ursula are at a baseball game, and there's some rivalry between the local cops again, and she says, "Oh, you can punch me," and then she closes her eyes, gets hit with a baseball, and she hits you with a snow cone, which I heard was real ice and really hard for several takes. And then you find a semi-truck carrying weed, you get locked in there by a big biker guy, and there's a Porsche scene where the 2 coolest Germans ever get pulled over, and the German woman's, they're actually titled German Man and German Woman on IMDb, and Max jerking off while clocking it, and that's just a funny moment to me. And oh God, there's the threesome scene with the mustache ride. Jesus Christ, Andy, you go.
It's too complicated.
It's too many
and then at one
hilarious
point,
jokes.
and then at one point, Farva has to go turncoat, and he,
Yep.
and because
After his leader of Cola? After his leader of Cola
then we
scene?
have the leader of Cola scene, and he opens up the cup and it spills all over him and stuff like that. And then he has to become a bad guy for a second, but then he decides to become a good guy. He gets washed in powdered sugar and shower, and we see his wiener.
We think the key to saving our jobs is to get the Winnebago and take all the grass that's hidden inside the Winnebago and present it to the governor, Governor Jessman, as played by Lynda Carter. But it turns out the local cops were ahead of us the whole time, and there's no pot in there, just a bunch of garbage. So we lose our jobs, and as we are all saying goodbye and going out for one last final wild night out with O'Hagan, we stumble upon the plan that the local cops are in the airport making some sort of switch-over transfer with some French pilot to give him the weed, and so we get into a shootout with the local cops, and then O'Hagan has to get into a fist fight, and
then
we
your
win.
beer deliverers, and you see the guys from the beginning all over again. Yeah!
Nice.
We did it.
See, I forgot that my notes are almost entirely like jokes that I thought are really funny, so I'm like, oh God.
You've
Well,
conveyed the joke.
but that's kind of the thing about Super Troopers is that it's like the plot is just the plot is there. It kind of moves us along and stuff like that. But it is this movie that is just chock full of scenes that you're just like, I just want to hang out with these guys. I could care less what this movie's about. I just love hanging out. Just want to hang out with these dudes.
And that's been the interesting balance trying to hit on writing the sequel too, is that even though nobody really busted our chops for sort of the thinness of the plot, although we made it sound in 3 minutes like a pretty Byzantine affair. We challenged ourselves for the sequel to say, let's make this plot compelling on its own. Whether we've accomplished that or not, we'll find out. Obviously not at the expense of set pieces. We wrote a ton of set pieces. But yeah, we also, what we're striving with this one is I think it's really good storytelling.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting conceit, so that hopefully that is as interesting as the rest of the movie's funny.
But I think that's super smart too, because now you're doing what you didn't. You're not like, okay, we're just going to do the same thing over again. You're actually, you're like, all right, here's the part that was a little thinner on in the first movie, so now we'll hit that one hard, and then everything will feel a little bit more like, yes, we're here for this.
And I think I want to do a couple. I want to roll through some sound clips. We'll go along as we keep talking. But the opening. I mean, I ended up having to delete like 5 sound clips because otherwise half my sound clips were going to be from the opening because it's just like a joke parade, like we were talking about. Do you have Pull Over up there, Zach? Can we play that one? This is when. Oh, there we go.
I'm already pulled over. I'm already pulled over. Pull over farther, man. I can't pull it. Sir, I'm already pulled over. He's already pulled over. He can't pull over any farther.
I don't know how many times in college we were like, I can't pull over any farther. Where it's like, hey, dude, when we'd be talking, we'd go on like road trips and have our walkie-talkies to like Florida and be like, hey, pull over. We got to use the bathroom. I'm already pulled over, man. I can't pull over any further.
You took walkie-talkies on a road trip to Florida.
Yeah.
Were you guys,
when did you go to college?
12 years old?
No, it's because... That does sound really weird.
Like my 9-year-old son
we got there.
communicates with his buddy across too.
We had walkies because we didn't want to keep calling each other. So if it was like, hey, we got a bathroom break, we had 2 cars, and it was like, pit stop, all right, or you're getting too fast, Roger Charlie Jr. That wasn't a call.
Who wants cotton candy? Or who wants to go pull over and play with army men?
Did you even go to college?
I did. I majored in acting, which a lot of good that did me. But that's something. Let's see. Oh, then there's you are freaking out, man. This is when the drugs are starting to kick in. I love that. I'm pretty sure his name is college student number 3 or something.
Yeah, or backseat college student. Yeah.
I like how you gave them credit for being college students.
But Jim Gaffigan gets Larry Johnson, by the way. Jim Gaffigan is named Larry Johnson, but everybody else, there's German Man and I think German Man has been in a decent amount of stuff, if I remember right. I've seen him.
Oh yeah, he's one of my best friends, Philippe Brennickmeier.
He's been in a ton of stuff.
He works a fair amount here, but in Europe he's actually quite a big star.
Yeah.
In Germany especially, he was the leading. He's like the Richard Chamberlain of Germany, and Germany does a lot of. It sounds. They do a lot of these like romantic movie of the weeks. That's apparently still like every week you could see a new original, and there are always these really lavish international productions where he'll play like a lonely ranch owner in Scotland or something like that. Even though the movies are always done in German, so he does a ton of those.
That's awesome.
So he's quite famous.
German man in this movie.
I do.
And when he's freaking out, can you just play the you are freaking out, man?
You know how fast you were going?
65?
63.
I'm freaking out, man.
You are freaking out, man.
Sorry, that's just
Littering and
smoking the reefer. And the Snosberries quote, this will be the last one I play from this scene because I don't know. Like I said, I have to track down a Snosberry dealer somewhere. And what is it? Has anybody ever had a Snosberry here?
No,
I think it's a fictitious.
It's from Willy Wonka.
Oh!
Yeah,
I was hoping
think-
it was real.
No. So in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, it's a film.
It shows
Gene
how
Wilder.
you know what. In my defense,
Wait a minute, I only know the Johnny Depp movie.
I haven't seen Willy Wonka
Scooting
since
over.
I was. Now I'm so sad. I was gonna go get a snot. Well, right meow. I just looked like a dumbass, but it's okay.
Oh,
Snosberries.
Snosberries.
Who ever heard of a snosberry?
That's
and
what
then,
it
yes,
is.
And then Gene Wilder says, "You should open your lips a little bit more when you talk."
So now that I've embarrassed myself, let's play the Snosberry.
Snosberries taste like snosberries.
So since this movie came out till now, I've been thinking that Snosberries were real and that I was missing this in my life because I saw Willy Wonka a few times when I was a kid, but not enough to remember that.
Wow.
So at least now I know that there's one more thing I can check off the list that
but
I
you know what? There might be a lot of people who.
think Snosberries are real.
Well,
Yeah,
and I think there's a British chocolatier that makes Wonka candy.
Now everybody's making me feel better in the room.
So-
Hey, it's okay. It's okay.
We're too nice.
You
We
can
should
get
be
fake
making-
Snosberries.
Hey, no, listen. I'm sure somewhere there's a Snosberry.
Oh shit! I got you, good you fucker.
Good timing on that one.
Yes, indeed.
Good timing on that one. We got to play the meow clip because, and where did this joke, how many different versions of, like, how many different games did you guys go through, if you can remember, or were there alt versions, or was meow always the front runner for you, for your scene?
I mean,
Because they run through other ideas, like you want to play the nervous donkey or whatever.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was one of the probably the first things that was even ever written. I mean, that I remember back to us being, we were out here, I think, working on like a TV pilot or something, and we'd all stay in one. We had no money, so we would all 5 of us in one hotel room, and you know, you just get lit all night long and goof around, and that just it somehow the idea was that we'd come up. It's hard to convey a conversation you had when you're stoned later on, but. Was that the idea that there was like a wizard who that was his curse was he would put a curse on you and replace your tongue with a cat's tongue, so you'd have a little sandpapery tongue was what this wizard would do to people. But and then at some points it was like, and instead of saying now, you would only be able to say meow, and that we loved, and so we knew we were doing something with that, and then that turned into like us just screaming meow at each other, and then like. The kid from the front desk called and said they were like, our neighbors were complaining that there were a bunch of dudes screaming meow at each other in the next room. And we just started like, we got to do something. I don't know what it is, but we got to do something with this. And that was really one of the first, that may have been the kind of the origin of the concept that these guys would have games that they would play on people. Was it, oh no, these guys should fuck with people. And I think that was probably where it all began, really.
That's the most fantastical explanation for. I never assumed that it was going to be like. I thought you were going to be like, well, you know, in college our RA was kind of a dick, so we'd be like, hey, meow, and we always would mess up. Nope, it was a wizard who cursed you with a cat tongue, and not just cursed you as a cat, but with a tongue that specifically makes you say meow instead of now.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it, isn't it? And we talk about being the point man in these riff sessions and writing all these things down. I mean, you have to believe me when I say that you would, being a point man on any of our movies, but especially that, you would look back at your notes the next day and it would be like, what? Like, this doesn't even make sense. What the fuck was this? And you go through and, you know, like 90% of it, you're like, that's just
They're not gonna arrest a wizard in this movie.
And then you find that 1 out of every 10 things is like, oh no, that makes sense. What we were laughing about last night.
Yeah.
Let's play the meow clip right meow if we could. Is that You have it up, Meow?
What's our current tally? I
Your
don't know my
registration?
glasses.
31.
Hurry up, meow. Sorry.
These meows
Is there
don't count.
something funny here, boy? No. Well, then why are you laughing, Mr. Larry Johnson?
You like my southern accent?
I was gonna
right,
say,
yeah,
like,
wait.
you're a Colorado boy who went to college in New York.
Am I saying
You
meow?
went southern on us.
But wasn't Terry
I
from
thought-
Badlands of Cain?
Don't think,
It's
boy,
supposed
man.
to
You
have a
know
southern
how fast
accent.
you were
Southern,
going.
yeah. It's your go-to.
Now, what is so damn funny?
I could have sworn you said meow.
I could have
Oh,
sworn.
that's the best part. Do I look like a cat to you,
Do I look
sir?
like a cat to you,
That's
sir?
the best, man.
Yeah, that was the first scene that was shot. So that was morning one of Super Troopers, and Gaffigan. I remember just, and we also we didn't know, we had done a movie before, but we didn't kind of just know what you're supposed to do in many ways. And I remember that morning, we all got dumped on the side of the road. There was not like holding area there. I don't even think we hadn't even thought to put chairs down for people to sit in. And I remember, but we were all geeked. We were going, we'd gotten the money, we were ready to go. And I see Gaffigan get out of a pass van and looking around like, it's not even a fucking chair for me. And then he came
Call
over
my
to
agent
me.
right now.
He came over and I introduced myself. He's like, yeah, well, where's the fella get coffee around here? It was like 6 a.m. And I was like, I remember the time being like, ooh, this Hollywood diva over here wants coffee in the morning.
He wants a bottle of water
Yeah,
or
exactly.
a chair.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to be sitting in a car the entire scene, all right, diva?
And it's funny how like that is, it's 100% true, especially if you come up as just like a core group of you.
Mm-hmm.
You never think of these things as you're going. I remember the first movie that I ever produced, and I'm driving people back and forth because we couldn't park a certain place and stuff like that. And I get this call on my cell phone, hey man, where's the first aid kit? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, what?
Snake bite kid, Andy.
We have 30 minutes
I'm
until
like,
this
we're
fight.
shooting a drama. Who got hurt? At what point? But you don't think of these things. And I can't imagine because I've never gotten to shoot on film, but you guys are shooting this movie in 35 millimeter film, so you had a Panavision camera and no chair. It's
crazy.
$200,000 worth of glass and not a coffee pot inside.
Yeah. Well, you're supposed to feed people.
Awesome.
Whatever.
I actually, the worst craft services I ever had was on a UCLA directing scene. When I first moved out here, I used to sign up on LA Casting for a UCLA directing scene, and what that meant was they would recreate shot for shot a scene from a famous movie.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
I did Body Heat.
Sure. You're
Where
the William
I was
Hurt.
the William, and I had a white V-neck on, and I was smoking cigarettes, and I don't smoke, and I had to smoke an entire pack in a half a pack in about a 2-hour period, and I started getting so lightheaded I couldn't even close my hand. I was trying to close my fist, and I was like, "What's happening?" They're like, "You need to get some food." So I go over to Craft Services. It's Doritos and Oreos for a 6 a.m. shoot, and Mountain Dew. I'm like, "What? This is a college craft service table." That's what I ate in college, but
Andy and I, both of our eyes lit up.
Yeah,
We're
we're like,
holy shit. Oreos and
Were
Doritos?
they-
put them together.
Were they like the name brand Doritos?
They were.
They
They weren't the fake
tortilla
Oreos.
crisps.
Yeah, no, they were real. They were
Oh,
real.
man.
So
Bougie.
the German couple, they're two of my favorite cameos in the movie, and the mustache ride. Can we play that clip just because I love it so much?
Who wants a mustache ride?
Want one? I want one.
I don't. There's so many times in my life where this has come up, where we've just said, "Who wants a mustache ride?" in the most weird and inopportune moments. And like I said, whenever I had a beard or anything, I'd come home and look at my wife and be like, "Who wants a mustache ride?" And she's like, That's the grossest way you can ask for a kiss from me.
I can't. I don't think that's a mustache ride, is it?
No.
I know
I don't want to tell them.
I know what a mustache ride is, guys. But I'm not going to describe to the audience what it means in context of my wife, all right?
Strangers would give me such a dirty look when I asked them if they want a mustache.
Ask my
ride.
mom for a mustache ride.
So
Get over
weird.
here, Mom. Get
Get
over here,
here,
Mom.
Mom.
Oh, come on. Don't
You
be
want a
sad.
mustache ride? Family reunions. Now it explains why they got so awkward. Oh.
Definitely. So now you know. There's so many. I feel like you've learned a lot in this.
I've learned a
in this
lot. I've
episode.
learned a lot. I've learned a lot.
There's no
I know.
such
I
thing
know.
as
Snozberries, mustache ride?
Mustache ride doesn't mean a peck. Did you guys know this? Right, meow. Oh man. Then we haven't talked about yet that you're the romantic lead in this. You have the romantic
What's there to
through
talk
line.
about? Yeah.
And I like the scene where you win her over by flashing her with what looks like, I couldn't tell in the light, but it looks like pink tighty whities or something. Or
Yeah, I think the idea was that I was wearing women's underwear under a trench coat as a way to endear myself to a woman who already thinks I'm an asshole.
Perfect.
That's the beauty of movies. Those things, you buy that.
Can we play the Flasher, Foster the Flasher clip I have?
Oh, the humanity. He's all bulgy. He's like a moose.
He's like a
Oh, no. I think he's going back again.
So, where did this voice come from? What was the idea behind? It sounds like a crazy aunt who hangs out and just talks about people being bulgy.
Oh, the humanity.
There's almost a little Harvey Firestein in there before he got real throaty.
Yeah.
We when we were writing the movie and we were out trying to get it sold, we were crashing on the floor of a guy's house, a guy named DJ Paul, who talks like that, and hysterical dude, heterosexual, yet spent all his time on eBay buying like belt buckles and tight-fitting denim jackets, and he would like compliment your pants and give you a swat on the ass, but swear to God, not gay. Always had a girl over, but then he'd say things like, we'd be watching sports. We like took over his place and started watching like ball games and stuff, and he would say, "Oh, who's this playing?" I'd be like, "Well, it's the Mets." It's like, "Oh well, that's not my sport. I'm a football guy myself. Has the season started yet?" And you'd be like, well, you're not a fucking fan if you just ask me if has the season started yet. So that's if you're hanging out with Broken Lizard, and you fuck up like that, like we all just, if you say something dumb, that tends to be the response that the guys will get. It was like, "Oh, has the season started yet?"
This is the one thing that I think is funny is that every story is you guys crammed in a small room together.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is where greatness, it's definitely where greatness happens. I can't imagine what it must have been like the first time you guys, like Super Trooper sells, you make some money, you get like a big development deal, and you guys all went to like different apartments, and then I imagine you called each other and like, this fucking sucks. I'm like way by myself right now. Like, did that happen to you guys?
Yeah, because we all, I mean, for years and years, we all, lived together in New York, went to college together. Guys lived together in college, moved out to New York. Eric and I lived together, or the other three guys were living together. And that's been the interesting thing about adapting to as we've all gotten older and just out of necessity we're live different ways. But our writing process then was very amorphous because there was this. We were hanging out all the time, and when we were hanging out, we were riffing, and then we were riffing. Okay, sometimes we were kind of writing, but it all kind of blended together. So there wasn't like, okay, now is writing time. We're sitting down to write.
Yeah.
It was that all that we did for years and years was just hang out and go to movies together and dick around together, and it was that always turned into generating material that became, especially for Super Troopers, how that movie got written. And so, that's been the challenge too on a sequel, is trying to capture that as guys in their 40s married with kids who have a ton of shit on their plates, who it's hard to schedule 5 hours together in a week. And then you sit down and it's just you try to make it the same vibe, but then it has this sort of pressure, like, okay, well, shit, okay, we gotta be really funny, and but the clock's ticking, and so that's,
I get what you mean, though, because like you were saying earlier about when you would perform on stage and stuff in sketches and things like that with your troupe, my wife and I did similar things where we do these big blowout like sketch shows, and the only people that would ever come is our friends. And like you said, a lot of, even when I used to do stand-up, it would be like a bringer show, and you had to bring 10 people, and there would be a guy there going, "You only have 9, so is your 10th person coming?" And it's like, fuck, you have 9 people because of me. Go fuck yourself. Like, and that gets exhausting. And I'm married now. We have a condo, and HOA. I'm on the HOA. All this nonsense adult stuff now that in your 20s and in college you don't have. And you're right. It is difficult to try and find time to meet with people and be creative, and so there's like this energy when you're first starting out of like, oh, we can't all crash on a floor together or hang out till 5 a.m. and write. And now it's like midnight, and all my friends are like, fuck, dude, what are we doing out still?
Yeah, but even just all that added responsibility of adulthood just crams away the brain space you used to devote to just thinking stupid thoughts and just going on flights of fancy, and it's tough. And fortunately, my wife has been willing to take a lot of that I've thrown on her. But then when it comes down to something that needs to be dealt with or thought about, I find myself very resentful, because it's like, God damn it, why am I thinking about the gutters? Like, that's time I usually would be spending thinking about Action Jackson.
Right.
Something like that.
Like today, I was in the middle of writing notes for the show, and then I get an HOA email about like, we need to get a no nudity sign for the hot tub, so the one person who bathes nude at 5 a.m. stops doing that. And I'm like, I don't want to think about this right now. Why is this my response? I'm not even getting paid to do this. So I gotta go create my own no nudity sign in our hot tub. Do you want a copy of it? I want to play.
I'd like to play that. I just like to put that in my own hot tub.
So we were talking about.
My wife's like, good call.
We were talking about Farva earlier, and one of my favorite Farva scenes is the liter of cola scene. Can we play the liter of cola?
Give me a liter of cola.
A what?
A liter of cola.
Liter of cola? Do we make liter of cola?
Well, you just order a large Farva. I don't want a large Farva. I want a goddamn liter of cola.
See, and we talked about Farva too, and trying to pin down what his pathology is. But like that line, I don't want a large Farva, encapsulates exactly. Like, he is making a joke, I guess.
Or does he really think that he... Like,
I think he's upset, but he has to say something that he thinks is funny, even when he's pissed off.
Yeah,
he's a complicated guy.
He's a very complicated guy. He's idiosyncratic, that's for sure.
It's one of those things, like, and this is a huge tribute to you guys. And I was literally talking about this in another meeting today. Was this idea that you guys as characters are. Like, there's no question of who you are the moment we see everybody. Like, the moment you see Jay, okay, he's a straight man. He's kind of the leader. When he goes, Mother of God, you're like, okay, got it. He can play both sides. And your line where you're like, can't make him Speed. You're like, this dude doesn't give a shit about me. But it's funny, like, hanging out with his friends. And Farva's the same way. Like, every character within 3 lines, you're like, that's that guy right there.
Yeah, and I think that's an advantage that we had of having an audience not know who we were up to that point. Is I think that anytime, there are actors who are able to do these really sort of seamless transformations, but I think for the most part people were able to see that and just immediately bought that's just who we were.
Yeah. I wondered how many times do you think Foster uses the dummy as a... That's I love your intro where there's a dummy in the front seat and you're just casually coming up from fishing. Like, that's just because I've often thought how many times in my life would it help to have a dummy to get in the carpool lane? And I've thought, how often would that work versus if I got pulled over, how screwed I would be by a
People
cop.
get busted. I feel like you read about it.
Yeah.
Or hear about
People
it
do that too?
I think there was an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where he got to get a prostitute.
There's a short film I saw once years ago where a guy worked at a morgue and he would take dead bodies home so he could get in the carpool lane.
Fantastic.
Very dark.
That's actually pretty smart.
But hilarious.
No.
Do you think there were other uses for the dummy that you guys ever went through or anything like that? Did you filter through any other ideas, or was that just kind of a one-off joke for Foster?
Probably. I mean, there was a period of time where we had a ventriloquist dummy in the office, and so there was always somebody doing something, nasty with that.
The humanity.
Dummy. His name was Billy, a classic sort of haunted-looking ventriloquist dummy. So
looked like he could be in a comedy or a James Wan film.
Yeah. And but no, I'd have to think back, but I'm sure there was going to be some more naughty things done. Even in that scene, it's starting to come back to me. There was going to be more dummy humor in that scene.
Well, I want to run through a few more sound clips, and we do have to wrap up here in a little bit so we can do I Talk Movies, which is coming up next. But
we're going to finally talk about movies instead of this shit.
We're going to talk about their new film, Badlands of Cain. Shenanigans. Can we play the Shenanigans clip? Because this is Shenanigans was a specifically, as far as I know, a Midwest/East Coast chain. I don't know if was it out here.
I think you're talking about Bennigan's.
Bennigan's?
But this
Bennigan's
is
a real thing. I don't.
Is this another thing where Shenanigans wasn't real?
Shenanigans isn't real.
Where'd you find
God
this?
damn it!
Yeah.
Listen,
Yeah, I mean,
I never went. I went to Bennigan's all these years thinking it was Shenanigans. God damn it! Look at this. I usually
that's I can't guarantee that there's not an establishment named Shenanigans, but
audience tweet at me if you've ever been to a Shenanigans restaurant. You guys sold me
They
on
also
it.
use Shenanigans in Waiting. I think there was another. I think that was the
That
name.
was the
name of the restaurant they worked at.
See,
was
I've just been
Shenanigans.
incepted that Shenanigans is real, and I haven't. Here's the problem. I believe everything that movies tell me, and I just say Snozzberries are real, Shenanigans are real, and got you good, chicken fucker. I just combined two quotes. Can we play the
I
Shenanigans?
swear to God, I'll pistol whip the next guy that says Shenanigans.
Hey, Farva, what's the name of that restaurant you like with all the goofy shit on the walls and the mozzarella sticks? You mean Shenanigans?
Oh, we would say that all the time in college as well, and I feel like all of us thought Shenanigans was real. It's okay. I'm having an awakening today about things.
I feel like there's a whole other show we got to do. Like, just be like, hey Ben, what else do you think is real?
right, it's like the Matrix, where you're
Just like,
allowing you to see the world. For
What's
the first time.
happening?
it's like I can't wait to tell Ben that Superman's not a real guy.
Fuck. So, we'll get to the end here of the movie. There's a little bit of a falling out between you and Ursula, which I love the fact that you guys named a super cute girl Ursula, like the kind of most bizarrely
Oh, it's an attractive name.
Disney villainish.
Ursula Andress, right?
I just
Well,
think
there was a girl that we went to college with named Ursula. So it was
Ah.
she was named after Ursula Hansen.
for a while there, I
Or
always
is the
named
character Ursula Hansen.
in rough drafts of things. I always named characters Natalie because I was obsessed with Natalie Portman, and then my wife started being like, "She's not. Natalie is not going to exist in this movie." Oh, you're writing a love scene with your character Natalie. That's very interesting.
Natalie's real.
Natalie Portman is real, guys, right?
Yes.
But I want
Natalie Portman's real.
I want to play the "Cracked on My Heart" line because I think it's such a funny line. Can we play that
No
one?
idea.
Did you pick me because you thought you could manipulate me?
How? How could you even say that?
Because you crapped on my heart.
I what on your heart?
Because you say that so sincerely, and then her reaction just like, "What the? I don't even understand what that means."
Yeah, it's the biggest challenge is trying to insert jokes into the romantic beats
Yeah.
of a comedy. And so that was an example of like, 'cause I don't know, what if I say something stupid? I don't know what, you just, because it's wants to be a bit of an earnest moment
Yeah.
there because you're invested hopefully in these guys now, but then you want it. That's why I think that's why we had Mac runs in a rabbit. Rabbit's still got the bear fucker costume on. It was like just anything that we can do to make sure the audience doesn't walk out in those parts of the movie. So,
But I think that's what grounds this movie is that you have to have. I think that your storyline with Ursula grounds it in something that you're rooting for, because that has to happen in these. Because otherwise, it's just a bunch of guys goofing off, and they don't really have an arc that they get. I think your character has the most arc, where everybody else kind of is status quo at the end, doing their same shenanigans, not the fake restaurant. But you've grown by the end. I feel like, and I think you need that. You need somebody who you're rooting for, who's kind of the voice of the audience, who. And who can say really hilarious things like "you crapped on my heart" in a very earnest way.
There's another part that like doesn't get talked about a lot, but it's hilarious. Is when you show up for the incognito date and you're in like, the full
You got the biker.
You're like
biker.
Yeah.
which was, you'll appreciate this as a director, that joke was not written into the script. We were I can't remember whether our intention was that they were both in biker outfits or they were both in bicyclist outfits. But it was that day we showed up to the set and our wardrobe person was like, I wasn't sure what you meant, so I brought both.
That's
and we
awesome.
looked at it. It was one of the, I'll
Dude,
never
yes.
forget that moment of like, we looked at her and we looked at each other and we were like, oh my God. Like that's what's cool. Like shit that happens.
Totally.
Like that joke would never have existed. And it's one of my favorite bits because essentially we didn't write it. It just kind of, it fell into our laps.
I also like your undercover costumes when you get in the semi-truck, which is it's like the world's worst like hillbilly sketch characters. Like, all right, we're gonna go and ride this truck into the sunset, and it's just like these blatant wigs. And I love that that's the highway patrol in Spurbury County's idea of undercover work.
Yes. Right. And it was about as broad as we got. I mean, those are the other arguments that we tend to get into. Is like, how broad is too broad? Because that scene actually, the first iteration of that scene actually had us driving off in the semi and going to a truck stop and doing some investigation. And there was originally going to be that we get into a fist fight with some truckers, and I was going to have been wearing a fake mustache, and I get punched by the trucker, and my fake mustache goes flying off, and all the truckers are delighted that their buddy punched me so hard that he punched the mustache off my face.
You got the mustache off that guy.
It was that moment, like Mac and I were supposed to look at each other like, oh, we're fucked. What are we going to do now? And we kind of open our mouths to say something, and they're all like, yeah, you punched him so hard, you punched the mustache off his face. And I remember that fight being like, all right, but how dumb can you make a human being in a movie before you're going into Zucker territory?
Yes, it's that in a comedy. I mean, we fought back and forth. I mean, it wasn't like a fight.
No,
it was
a
this challenge like in Funhouse where it was just like we wanted to play the humor straight and not go into kind of scary movie territory. And so like I always equated like my thing with all the department heads was like, I want it to be a fish story that your dad tells you. I want the fish to be unbelievable to a point. Like it can't be too big that everybody's like, fuck you, that's not even real. Right. But but it's still like big enough that everybody's like, cool fish.
I mean, we almost never in the group argue about whether something's funny or not. The arguments are about, have we stretched the boundary too much of reality?
I think we have to wrap up here pretty quick. So I wanted to let the audience know. Hurry up, meow. I wanted to see if right now we could tell the audience a little bit about Super Troopers 2, what they can expect. We've gone over to a decent amount, but when, if there's any sneak peeks or anything you can give us or anything. I understand if it's top secret too.
We're really trying to play it close to the vest in terms of any details about it, because I think I have a feeling actually people don't want to know. I think people will want to sit down and be like, okay, where the hell are these guys going to go with this?
And you guys Indiegogo later.
So what we did was, the deal that we made with Fox was that we would raise the money for it. So we did the Indiegogo campaign, which turned out great. But we also have to do with the studios, we're raising the marketing budget, and then so we were able to get that money, go shoot a bunch of the movie, and then take some time off while we finished raising the marketing money. And so we've got that now, and we're set to go back and finish up in the summer. So then, I think, I don't know what the timeline would be. Then it's up to Fox, sort of when it comes out. But no matter
what, Super Troopers 2 is happening. And we're very excited about that. And I know our fans, make sure you guys follow everybody on this stage here. This fun little stage right now. Because Super Trooper 2 is coming out. I'm sure you guys are going to start posting about it when the time. I know that the timeline
we do
of things and all that.
Updates through Broken Lizard, at Broken Lizard, or through our Indiegogo business. So, yeah.
All right. Well, this has been one of my favorite times on this show, Right Meow, because I love this movie, and it just means so much to have Foster himself in this audience, in the crowd here. What am I saying? I'm just making up words now because I'm still reeling from shenanigans not being real and snozberries. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Guilty Movie Pleasures this week. Where can they find you guys? Where can we find you on social media so everybody knows?
At Petri Andy, Petri Andy.
At Paul Soter, or my Facebook page. I still have
a Facebook page.
Other people have Facebook? Yeah, I still have a Facebook page.
Yeah, why not? And at Broken Lizard as well. I'm at Ben Begley, at The Ben Begley, and you can also find at Funhouse Mass, funhousemassacremovie.com. This guy right here directed it. We're going to be back very shortly with an I Talk Movies With episode where we're talking Badlands of Cain, the newest movie from these two right here, where we get to see Paul play a slightly darker character than you might be used to. So please tune into that. Also, make sure you comment on this YouTube video. Tell us what kind of movies you want us to do next. Give us some suggestions. Tweet at us. Like us on iTunes. All that good stuff. And until next time, what is your guilty movie pleasure?
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, Christian Harloff, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.
You are freaking out, man.